Live from 864 Sound in Greenville, South Carolina, it's the Wash Bros Podcast with your hosts, Matt Jackson and Clay Smith.
What's up, guys? It's Matt Jackson and Clay Smith, and we're the Wash Bros. Thanks for tuning in. This is going to be episode 19, and we're going to be talking about the differences in like residential and commercial pressure washing. And we both have experiences. Like, we started the business getting into just like strictly residential, and it's recently evolved into more commercial. And especially with Clay, with like good repeat business, that's really allowing him to like build up multiple trucks and employees and start dominating Greenville.
Yeah, let's take over the market, right?
Just not too much. I still got to have some work.
Yeah, so commercial and residential, it's almost like you got to have two mindsets. Like, okay, do I need to jump for this commercial guy or do I need to run to this residential job, right? Who am I going to schedule? Who is more important? I think that's the biggest thing. Like, I'm a squirrel in the middle of the road, like trying to figure out, okay, which way do I go, right?
It seems like there's always a fire somewhere.
Yeah, because, you know, you're one mistake away from not having that commercial job, but that residential customer, if you take care of them every time you go, they're going to call you every year, maybe every 6 months, you know? So it's like, okay, what am I going to do? And then the commercial work, you're waiting anywhere from 30 to 90 days on the check.
I'm still waiting from like August. So.
Yeah, so, and then residential, you get paid, I mean, what? Right then and there when you're done.
Same day.
You know,
And
I
you
very rarely have anybody I have to wait on.
Yeah, you don't have to give like a certificate of insurance or a W-9 as well. So
And they tip.
yeah,
Right?
that's true.
So, yeah, you very rarely have to do all the things that you have to do for commercial, but the commercial's the bigger ticket. And I feel like that is the path to growth, though, right?
It moves the needle.
Especially if you can make that relationship where it's residual. You know, in my case, we just picked up a contract doing 4 quarterly cleanings with McDonald's. So that's pretty huge for a company, you know, for any cleaning company.
Yeah.
And talking about getting 27 more. So if I do that, you know, we're going to have a McDonald's Wash Pro truck, right? So, and then we're with builders. We're doing, starting a development here in the upstate. And then, you know, a couple other things. We do some work for big retail locations and stuff like that around here. So how can you keep yourself busy with, you know, that? I think that's a stepping stone. Start hiring people, start growing, start scaling your business. Like, I think that's important. I don't think, like, in our industry, like, we're in a very, very saturated industry where we're located. We're in the upstate South Carolina, so we're very, very saturated with pressure washers.
I passed
everywhere.
3 pressure washing trucks coming here and it's 30 degrees.
Yes. So I think it depends on the market. Like, it's very hard to grow strictly off of residential in our market, and probably most markets, like anywhere in Florida or anything like that. So you got to make those connections, I feel like, in commercial. I don't know. Somebody could prove me wrong, but that's you know, with me studying the market night and day, that's kind of what I've figured.
Yeah, I feel like the residential market too, like, has the ebbs and flows of the economy more than commercial does, because like these are businesses that need to be cleaned to run and pass inspections, and so they're treating the cleaning as differently than a residential person who's like, I either buy groceries at Costco this week or I have my house pressure washed. So like, when the economy is kind of how it is now, like, you can count more on commercial than you can on residential.
Yeah, and like a lot of the, like in my case, like a lot of the, like for the McDonald's, for instance, like, they have a lot of the corporate guys come in. Well, the corporate guys want to see everything cleaned up when they come through. So it's like, okay, you know, they have their quarterly inspection, so I have to do my quarterly cleaning to make sure everything looks good, right?
Yep.
So, for instance, like that can't be the only company that's doing that. Like, where can you go to figure this out? Like, what can you land? Who do I need to talk to? Who's in charge? And who do I need to get in front of to make sure that I get those? But a lot of it's subcontracted out too, though. So it's a very tough thing to try to figure out.
Yeah, a lot of, like, it's like we say, you just keep putting out good energy, professionalism, never like be bad to somebody and then like, hey, it'll come back and you're like, oh, I made that one connection doing some job for one guy, and then more opportunities come, and then before you know it, you're like, man, I gotta build trucks and I gotta hire some employees. But you've done a good job of getting out of that like owner operator mindset and like trusting your business to employees, where you're like looking at building out another skid, and your mindset's shifted even from the last time we've had a podcast.
Yeah, it really has. A lot of it's the brand awareness deal. You know, make sure that you're putting your brand out there. no money you spend on marketing, I wouldn't say would be a waste of money, right? Some of the places that I put money is different ROI, right? But they're also you gotta trust the process. And like the TV, for instance, it's a long-term play. It's not a right now type play. So like Google, that customer is ready to hire you on TV. They just hear you or see you on TV, and they're gonna remember you, when that day and time comes.
It's brand awareness.
Yeah.
And it creates you as like kind of an authority too.
Right.
People are
right.
like, oh wow, that guy's on TV.
Yeah, it was cool. It was really like I thought it was badass at first, but now I'm just like, okay, yeah, you see me on TV, cool.
Yeah, and you're leveling up, and then you're like, all right, like just like in the beginning, you're like chasing these revenue targets, like, oh, I can do all this by myself, or I can do all this with a 4 gallon a minute, and then you're like, okay, I can do all this with an 8 gallon a minute, and then now you're gonna be like,
You just keep going and going and
yeah,
going.
it's like it's not as cool. You're like, okay, these numbers are great, but now it's like, how can I manage this beast that I'm creating?
And I call it the addiction to business.
Yep.
It's like a drug, man. Like you just keep chasing it. You sometimes I lose sleep over it. I just can't quit thinking about it. I want that next high of business.
I think too, like the more you grow, the less like worried you're gonna be about the small stuff.
Yeah.
And you're gonna be detached more from like, hey, you're pressure washing, you're going to somebody's house, there's some BS issue, you can't get a stain out, or like something didn't work how you wanted it, or a little customer's complaining. You're like, hey, look, it's not going to affect me the same way when I got multiple trucks running. You focus more on the big picture, which I think has helped me personally with like not waking up in the middle of the night of cold sweats because I'm like, oh my gosh, like
this
is overwhelming and this one person's mad at me. I'm like, okay, that's great. I got like 4 people mad at me, but
right. It is what
it is business, and it's just like, hey, this is just what happens when you run a business and you're having multiple people do jobs a day.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that's helped me a lot though with like customer issues is the first thing I do when I get to a job. I obviously greet them with a smile, right? And then I go over what I have down that I'm going to be doing for them. And then as soon as I get agreement on that, we walk around the house together. Anything special you need to show me.
Yep.
Right?
Expectations.
Yes. Set expectations with everybody. And that has helped me a ton, man. I very rarely have any issues because of that. And then when we're done, we walk all the way around the house with the customer, make sure they're happy. That way, 2 days later, when they say that they're not satisfied with something, you can say, well, you told me you were happy, and I walked you around the house and pointed everything out.
Yeah.
So you did everything that you were supposed to do while you were there. And it saves a lot of time too.
You cover your bases so you don't get somebody telling you to run an hour out of the way to.
That's my favorite line. You told me.
Yeah.
All I want to do is get that satisfaction for that
like,
customer.
I'm here to serve you, and we walked around and you were happy.
Yeah, like I'm not gonna keep going back and forth with people. It saves a lot of time and money. Like I believe in cheating customer, right? But I'm gonna do that while I'm there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep.
But that's the first thing I do before I load up. We make sure that everybody is happy, everybody's good to go. And sometimes I gotta fix stuff. I tell people all the time I'm not perfect, so.
And to like how we were talking about commercial versus residential, like. It's a different customer with commercial and residential. And I was wrapping up a job for construction yesterday, and then it's just like fine tuning stuff, and we had a motor go out. So instead of running on 2 machines, we're running on 1 machine. And then you just kind of have to say, hey, like, I know you have time constraints. Like, this is what I can do. Like, what is the most important stuff for you?
Yeah.
Because like you almost have to control the customer. It's like kind of something from the car sales. Like somebody come in and try to like walk all over you. And like, I remember when I was selling cars, everybody's like, hey, you got to get control of your customer.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to pretty much, hey, this is like, you called me, I'm the expert, you're going to trust me, and this is how it's going to work. In a way that's respectful to them, but you're like being their trusted advisor throughout the process.
Now that you mentioned that, the biggest thing with me is like matching the energy. Like if they're really nice, I'm gonna be really nice back. If they're a dick, I'm gonna be a dick back. And believe it or not, that helps. Like that just like, okay, they respect you a lot more.
It's true, yeah.
So matching the energy is a big thing for me, but I think it also depends on your personality as well.
That's like mirroring somebody.
Yeah. I mean,
so they're gonna say, oh, I like that guy.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I have a pretty strong sales background, so it's helped me like a lot. So with business in general, and like seeing my mindset and being optimistic and stuff like that too. So
like we talk about, like when you've been through the wrath of car sales, and especially you're like a manager and you're like finance and all that stuff, like you have so many reps that you've learned what you've learned, and then now you got pressure washing that's a lot easier. In that sense,
the business part is so easy.
Yeah. All right. The hard part, I tell you all the time, is like the hard part for you right now is like you're doing it all yourself. Once you break out and you have your guys like running stuff, it's gonna be like, this is boring.
Yeah.
Because like that's your natural ability, as opposed to like, yeah, you're hustling and doing a great job pressure washing, but like you limit yourself so much based upon like time constraints.
Yeah, I'm tired of being tired, so hopefully I won't be tired much longer.
But you're doing a good job, because I was making these moves like in February, as opposed to you, who's a little more ahead of the 8 ball than I was.
Well, it's kind of like, I started my business in October, so if I can grow my business in October, I think it's going to play off as well as it's played off altogether anyway, right?
Yeah.
So like just keep on plugging away, staying consistent, and trust. Like the biggest thing for me is like trust in the process. And I think that's the hardest for anybody, because I see a lot of people, they got their equipment for sale and everything, like they're done with it, but just I guess that's separating the wheat from the strong, or I don't know how you want to put that.
Anybody can buy a pressure washing trailer and say they're a business, but most people are just and if they just want to treat it as a hobby, that's fine. A lot of guys are just like,
right, yeah.
In the spring and the summer, you see everybody pop up and they're like, oh, I'm gonna try pressure washing, and then it's like, this is the season where people's like, either they're doing it only on the weekends because they have a day job, or they try to be ambitious and they run out of money and have to sell their stuff.
I think that's the difference in being like a pressure washer and being a business owner.
Yeah.
When you hear people say like the self owner operators are not business owners, but still at the end of the day, you gotta hold yourself accountable.
Yeah.
As an owner operator.
Yeah. It's the first step.
There
in
is
being
two
a business
difference.
owner.
Yeah. It's like an entry level.
It's like self-employment. You're doing it all yourself. You're not employed to anybody. But then you start stepping into like, you have teams, and then you have employees, and you have overhead, which I found that jump to be far easier than people like to hype it up. I think people hype that as like, oh, this is like, I'm going to sell you a course on how to do this.
Oh yeah.
When in reality, it's like, man, when you're doing everything yourself, you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off, versus just hiring competent people, treating them right, and trusting them.
Just chill.
And then they're like, oh yeah, I figured out how to do this. Like you're saying with your guy, he's like, I showed him what to do and he picked it up. And then you also have multiple guys helping you out when you have a problem.
But you also got to make sure that they respect you enough to listen to what you're having to say too. Like the biggest thing with me is, with any of my employees I've ever had, period, before pressure washing and all this stuff, was like showing them that you aren't afraid to do the things that you're asking them to do.
That's the thing I do. I don't want to do something. I don't want to expect them to do something that I won't do.
Right.
Like I don't do heights. I don't like ladders.
Yep.
So I'm not really selling guys to climb up on a roof without me wanting to do it.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's the biggest. That's where you earn a lot of your respect, is showing them the things that but my employees, like, they have been following me since the beginning, so they already have a good bit of respect for me, so they already know the things that I've been doing.
Were these guys like your friends prior to it?
Somewhat, just acquaintances and stuff like that. So.
I feel like that's the best type of person to hire, because
Yeah,
everybody's like, you don't want family or like friends, because then you're gonna have that like awkward relationship with them.
You don't want it too close, and then you run into, like, I've had close people work for me before, then they feel like they can run over you. You're going to be cool with them going to do whatever they want to do all the time, and it's just not really healthy in the business world.
Yeah, I find it, just like with customers, I find it easier to like get a customer and then they become a friend.
Yeah.
And like, hey, I have an employee, and then they become a friend, than saying, oh, you're my buddy. Like, we've known each other since back when we were like in high school or college.
And I'd much rather work for a stranger than work for somebody I know.
Yeah.
Like, that's like customers. Like, I kind of just get cringe up when somebody I know contacts and say, hey, I need my house pressure.
You always are
washed.
like, do I give them my normal pricing or try to be nice? And then you're like, how nice can I be?
Yeah, I try to
it?
stick with the process, man.
Yeah.
But then again, just think about it. Johnny B over here, your buddy since elementary school, and you give him a price that he can't afford, and then somebody else is going to pressure wash your house, and then you look like a fool, right? So
I've had that
it's
happen
just
before.
like, it is what it is.
I've had people not reach out to me because they didn't want to be weird.
Yeah, that's true.
I was like, just give me a 6-pack and I'll show up.
Yeah, that's a good thing. That's I don't know. Like I say, business can be weird sometimes, but like I say, keep going back to this, being confident and trusting in the process has helped me. It's helped me a ton.
Yep. You start to view everything as like you're taking a step back and you have that like 30,000 foot view of things.
It's just
you're not too emotional up or down.
Yeah, and not letting your emotions get to you, and then like not, I don't know how to say it. Like I say, just not letting your emotions get to you, and not letting the stress tear you down. I would say, just keep your confidence.
You made it this far. You're Yeah, it's like it's a lot easier because like when I was trying to scale, it's like, oh man, I'm like starting a business from scratch, but it's really not. Like the
Yeah.
hardest part is like what you cut your teeth back in the day doing it because you didn't have the knowledge, you didn't have the equipment, you didn't have the brand. Now you're in a scaling process where you're like, oh man, like it won't be as easy, but it's
You know what
a hell
to
of a lot easier.
expect.
Yeah.
So,
And especially how you're doing it with all these like contracts and relationships. Like you'll find when you have multiple trucks and you post about that, people will come after you. Like my average ticket has shot through the roof. I'm losing a lot of the like small little subdivision stuff, but I'm doing
Right.
HOAs, I'm doing commercial buildings, I'm doing like big ticket stuff. And people are just naturally coming to me. I wish I had I wish I was like, oh yeah, like this is the secret sauce. But I think when you put out an image of like you have multiple trucks and you're a company,
yeah, and
like,
I think
it gets
that
easier.
and Matt's not really saying like start a business tomorrow and then buy 4 trucks and that's going to be easier. That's not what he's trying to say. He's just saying like I think that there's a respect level that you have to earn to get to that point, right? They've seen you grow as a business and you put your story out there and you let everybody know like, hey, I started this back when I was in college and this is my passion. This is what I went after, and people respect that and they love stuff like that. So
and you have thousands of jobs and customers under your belts.
yeah, versus you take you start tomorrow and you buy 4 trucks and wrap them, and then you come out of nowhere. You don't really have nothing to sell anybody on, right?
Yeah.
I think that, like I say, trusting the process, going through the loops, going through the struggle. You know, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I think like revenue wise, before I scaled to another truck, I was at like 800,000.
Right.
So there's proof of concept there.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
And then, but yeah, like you said, if you go into it, it's like you do a good job of like, hey, it's the process. Like if you say it's all about the process, you're not being ego driven. You're not going to be like, oh, like I'm treating this person differently, and then I'm being fake, or oh, look at me, I'm like the big entrepreneur with all the fancy trucks that I have stretched out on all this debt, and then I don't know why I can't get any jobs.
Yeah, I see a lot of guys in the area have that problem. A lot of guys reach out to me. I don't really have many answers for them. I just tell them to watch the podcast, you know. So
yeah, it's like, hey, if you watch the podcast, you know what we do, and then
It's
you
very
started out
simple.
with something pretty much free.
Yeah, I
Sweat
did.
equity.
yeah, pretty much.
It's like sweat equity and humility and plugging away.
Yeah. I helped you install your new one. We threw the old one on there. I gave you a little bit of cash, and we were back in business.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very important to understand the differences in commercial and residential. You don't want to spend your whole week working on a commercial job if the cash flow is not there in residential.
That's the truth. I feel like
Yeah.
they're both important, especially if you're starting out.
Yeah, like we're going to do a pretty big job in a couple weeks, and it's like, okay, this is going to take me 3 or 4 days, but you know, what am I going to do until I get paid for that, right? I mean, that's, you know, we average anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 a day, so 3 days, I mean, that's potentially $6,000-$7,000 just that I could have been making, which I'm going to sacrifice this time for another job. You know what I mean? So, just all about, I guess, what
You gotta
wanting to go
blend it
after.
out.
You got to blend it, yeah. So
Like when you jump into like the more business and you have all this revenue coming in and expenses going out, it's like cash flow becomes an issue.
yeah,
So-
that's what I've worked on all year is building capital, and that's been awesome. So
Yep.
it's helped my growth for sure. But I think that pretty much wraps. That's 19, right?
Yep,
Episode
19.
19, and hopefully we get in here more, do some more of this stuff. Since it's getting a little colder, I can do this stuff in the morning time
Yeah.
until I get everybody on the road. And like I say, guys, we're going to be in Orlando February for that convention out there. I don't remember the name. I'll be able to give you a little more information next time.
Bunch of
But we
letters.
will be in Orlando in February, I can assure you, for that convention. So
Yep, be fun.
like us on Facebook. Be sure to be watching our reels, share our reels. Let's get the word out there to everybody that's looking into pressure washing, maybe interested, maybe in pressure washing now, that may be struggling. Go to powerwashingcoach.com, check us out, fill out a form. We'd be happy to speak with you about some things, maybe help you get your business going.
Yep.
YouTube, Matt's got a book out. Definitely got a lot of information in it.
Yeah, the no pressure washing. Put it up on Amazon. By the time of this, we'll probably have like 50 reviews. So
Yeah, it's got some great reviews
trying
in it.
to get that up as just kind of like a free resource. If you have Kindle Unlimited, it's free. If not, it's $1.99. So
Yeah, check his book out. It'll help you out a lot too, if you're scared to talk to us. But other than that, just be sure you're sharing us away. Like I said, we'll be working on some more merch when we get more people interested. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I think that closes out episode 19. Give us a shout. We'll look forward to seeing you episode 20. See you.